Today I'd like to show you a Montessori 3-period lesson. I'm going to demonstrate using these homemade sandpaper letters that I've made. And the first step in the 3-period lesson is to name what you're trying to tell the child. So in this case, it would be, I would flip these over since we're doing sandpaper letters, and I would focus. So the focus is just on this letter. And I would say, this is a N. Tracing over the letter, and I would invite the child to trace it over and make the sound. And then I would flip it over and I would introduce the second letter. This is a eh. Eh. Would you like to try? I invite the child to try, and then introduce the last item. This is a t. T. Would you like to trace? Can you make a t sound? 3 is a nice number for introducing. It gives you a little variety instead of just 1 or 2, but if it does seem to be too much for a child, you can do less items. I try not to do more than 4. And again, it all depends on the child's ability. So naming is the first step. The second step is practice. And so this is the fun part for the child, because we get to play all sorts of games. And so with sandpaper letters, for example, I would start out by asking, can you point to the N? Can you point to the T? Can you point to the E? And I would mix it up every time. I would try not to get into any patterns so that the child won't just recognize the pattern versus recognizing the item that you're trying to introduce. And you can do this with sandpaper letters, you can do it with letters, you could do it with objects where you're introducing vocabulary. And this lesson has a lot of application. So I first ask the child, can you point to the N? Can you point to the E? Can you point to the T? And then I'll say, all right, close your eyes, no peeking. You have the child close their eyes. Young children particularly really like this. And then I would mix them up, put them in a different order. And then I would do that again. Okay, open your eyes. Can you point to the E? Can you point to the N? Can you point to the T? So that's an example of one game. Another game is you can say, can you put the N on the chair? And then the child would pick up the object and bring it over to where you've asked. And this gets them moving. So they're not only trying to remember the sound, but then they're also moving, which is engaging, 2 different ways of learning. So these would be in different locations throughout the room or even the house. And then once they're out in a different spot, then you can say, can you bring the N back to the table? And so they have to remember, okay, which one is the N and where is it? And then go get it and bring it back. And this just helps reinforce that learning, because they're using, a couple of different senses. So you can play those kinds of games. And there's a variety of different ways you can play. Sometimes I'll, move things around. And you do this second stage of the Montessori 3-period lesson quite a few times. And again, it's depending on the child's interest. Overall, you don't want to go more than 10-15 minutes, because that's probably the max that you're going to be able to hold your 3 to 4-year-old's attention. All right, the last step in the Montessori 3-period lesson is the checking. You want to check to see what your child remembers. And so this part, there are a variety of ways you could do it. You could say, can you point, or not can you point, but can you tell me what sound this is? Or what sound does this one make? What I like to do in my class is I will flip them all over. I'll mix them up again. I'll ask the child to close their eyes. I'll flip them over and mix them up. And I say that we're going to play the knock knock game. And so we'll go, knock knock, who's there? And we'll flip the letter over. Oh, what sound is this one? Trying to make it really fun and engaging. And it helps hold their attention, and they really like doing this part on their own too. So after this lesson is over, what you could see happen is that they'll take these objects out on their own, the sandpaper letters out on their own in the classroom, and they'll play knock knock by themselves which is a great way for them to practice it on their own. So again, reviewing the Montessori 3-period lesson, the first step is naming, et, n. The second step is playing games and the practice. Can you put the on the floor? Can you put the t over by the couch? Can you put the n on my lap? And you can even be silly too. Can you put the on my ear? Can you put the t on the top of your head? Other kids really like that. And then the third period, the last step, is the checking, the test, the assessment to see what your child remembers. And that is the Montessori 3-period lesson. Try that with your own handmade sandpaper letters, or try it with different objects of things in your house. And it could be, let's say you want to try different kinds of spoons where you want them to remember this is a ladle, this is a serving spoon, this is a teaspoon. And it's just a great way to make a fun game for kids to learn new vocabulary. Thank you for joining me.